Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Nigro with a Chemistry Notes screencast. This will be the first in our series that will deal with our mini unit on chemical equilibrium. All right, we're going to start with an introduction to equilibrium, but just as a reminder, we've talked about the idea of equilibrium in other areas, and generally I think of it as balance. All right, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that means in terms of chemical equilibrium, but most recently we did discuss thermal equilibrium, and that was when the flow of energy stops between objects. All right, and we learned that that happens when the two objects have the same temperature. So basically, when the energies of those two objects come into balance, they reach a state of thermal equilibrium. All right, so chemical equilibrium, we're going to have a similar idea here. It's going to be the balance, but of a reaction. So when have we reached a point where the reactants and the products are balanced based on the coefficients and a couple other factors? All right, that's going to lead us to chemical equilibrium. So there are a couple of requirements for a system to be able to reach equilibrium. The first is they must have a reversible reaction, all right? And so that's a reaction where those reactants can be reformed by the products. All right, so if we think about it, normally we think about a reactants forming products. All right, and that happens under most conditions, but a reversible reaction, the products can also collide and reform those reactants. So a reversible reaction is any one where this is a possibility. All right. How do we indicate that a reaction is reversible? All right, we're going to use a new type of arrow. We're going to use a double arrow. All right, we've been writing things with a single arrow that indicates one direction. Now we're going to see reactants on one side and a double arrow like this and products on the other, showing that the reaction can go forward, which would be reactants to products, or it can go in the reverse, which would be products to reactants. All right. Now, another piece that's really important is demonstrated by this beaker that we have here. All right. So we're going to run a reaction in this beaker, and we want to know, is this system open or closed? All right. Well, as shown, this system is open. All right. And then it goes on to ask, well, how do you know that? All right. We know that because products and possibly reactants are escaping the beaker. All right, we can see them up here, all these guys up here. All right. What can we do to close this system? All right, well, my students suggested a very, very easy fix. Put a lid on. All right, if we put a lid on that beaker, that's going to keep all those products and reactants inside of the beaker so that the reaction can continue to run. All right, so for a system to reach equilibrium, this is a must. You must have a closed system. So the question is, well, why do we think we need that? All right, well, if we want those reactants to be reformed, we need the products to stick around. All right, think about it. If the system is open, if there's no lid on the beaker, then the products can leave as soon as they form, and we can't monitor the reforming of those reactants. So we really need all of our components, whether they're reactants or products, to stay within the system. So to do that, we close it. All right, so you have to have a reversible reaction and the system has to be closed, okay? Now, those are some environmental conditions that are required for a system to be able to reach equilibrium. All right, there are two conditions that must be met to say that a system has reached equilibrium. All right, so the first one deals with rates. All right, so the rate of that forward, reaction, which would be reactants to products, must be equal to the rate of the reverse reaction, which is products reforming those reactants. All right, when that happens, then we say that the system has reached a state of equilibrium. All right, so the important word here is equal. The rate forward must equal the rate in reverse. And when that happens, the second condition is met because of that equal rate. And that is that the concentration of our reactants and our products become constant or unchanging. All right, now the important word for this second part is constant. All right, that doesn't mean that the amount of reactants and products have to equal each other. All it means is that they can't change anymore. They must be constant. All right, so not equal. Now, sometimes they could be equal. I mean, there's no reason why that can't happen, but it's not a requirement. They just need to remain constant. All right. Now, as part of our work at the beginning of the unit, we did a activity that dealt with Skittles and we had to draw some graphs. And so we should be able to show these two conditions in a graphical format. And that was part of what the purpose of that activity was. But we're going to do it here again. All right. We're going to start with the plot of the rate of reaction versus time. All right. And we're just going to assume that we are going to start our reaction with all reactants. All right. So I'm going to use blue for my reactants and I'm going to use red for my products. All right. So initially, I'm going to have a lot of reactants and I'm going to have no products. All right. Now, as the reaction runs, the rate of the forward reaction will be high because I have a lot. And then it's going to start to decrease until it levels out like this. All right. Initially, the rate of the reverse reaction is 0 because I don't have any product particles to run into each other to make any reactants. But over time, that rate will increase until eventually it equals the rate of my forward reaction. All right. So when we look at our plot, this area out here, all right, this is where we have equilibrium for our system, where the rate of that forward reaction equals the rate of the reverse. The numbers are the same. All right. If you look over to the left out in this area, all right, these values are clearly not the same. All right. So out here, you are not at equilibrium. All right. So it just takes some time for the system to be able to reach that point. All right. We should also be able to show how the concentration of our components change over time and where equilibrium occurs. Okay, I'm going to again use blue for my reactants and red for my products. And we're going to start with all reactants. We're going to mirror our rate of reaction plots. So we're going to start with all reactants and 0 products. All right. So over time, the amount of reactants is going to decrease until it becomes constant. All right, at the same time, our amount of reactants is going to increase until it becomes constant. All right, when you look out at this area, here and here, all right, these are where our concentration values are constant. They are unchanging, same numerical value. So this is equilibrium out here. All right. Now, similar to what we saw before we get there, here the amount of reactant is changing. Here the amount of product is changing. So this is not at equilibrium. This is before we have reached equilibrium. All right. Now, one other piece I just want to point out that these guys are constant, but they are not equal, right? In this case, we actually have, more products than we have reactants based on the numerical values that would be associated with those. All right. So the rate of reaction plot is going to look similar for system to system to system because everything becomes equal. The concentration plots can be varied. We can have more reactants than products at equilibrium. So the reactant plot stays above the products, or something like what we saw here. All right, but again, the key is that eventually the value for the products and reactants becomes constant. All right, now the last thing we talked about as part of our introduction was this idea that equilibrium is a dynamic process. All right, and what that means is equilibrium is dynamic, not static. All right. Now, static would be a system where everything ceases. All right. And that is not what happens in equilibrium. At equilibrium, the forward and reverse reactions are still running. All right, so when you reach equilibrium, because the rate of the forward and the rate of the reverse are equal, every time the forward reaction runs, the reverse reaction runs at the same amount. So you make product and it immediately gets broken down. You make it, it gets broken down. So if you looked at it from a view way up high, it would look like nothing is changing in your system. All right, but if you could narrow it down, get down to the particle level, you could see that there's still forward and reverse reactions going. All right. So because the rates are equal, the concentrations appear unchanged, but reaction is still running. All right. I always equate dynamic equilibrium to what it's like if you were running on a treadmill. All right. So you're running, right? You're expending energy. You get tired. All right. But you don't really go anywhere. It doesn't look like you've made any progress. You're in the same spot. All right. So that is a dynamic equilibrium. You are exerting energy, you are doing something, but you're not moving anywhere in total distance. All right. So anytime I think about something that's dynamic, that's what my brain goes to. All right. So again, this is just our introduction. It gives you the environmental conditions that are required. We need a reversible reaction and a closed system. It gives you what we should expect to see when a system reaches equilibrium in terms of the rates of that forward versus reverse reaction, and then the concentrations of our components at equilibrium. You should be able to recognize these things. You should be able to determine if a system's at equilibrium either by looking at some plots or if they give you a particulate diagram. You just need to understand those conditions and what you expect to see at equilibrium. And then finally, you should know what is meant by dynamic equilibrium, that even though it appears nothing is changing when you look at it from a faraway view, if you get down to the particles, you actually do see lots of changes happening still. Okay? All right. Come back for my next one.